Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to the third edition of Preseason 1. We're trying to get through some technical issues, stress test the computers and the set layout, and hopefully get ready in time for the regular season, which will be debuting in, I'm hoping, the week after San Diego. So thanks for tuning in today. We are going to be hopefully wrapping up this promo piece you see in front of you. This is the Teen Titans 20. It's the next week, actually it's coming out 2 weeks, the 25th. And basically what we're trying to do is take a double page spread. Retouching it, remastering it to make a print. My name's Bernard Chang. Welcome to my show. Hope you enjoy. It's early morning. So it's about 7:20. I'm catching some of you early risers, or some guys on the East Coast, overseas. Feel free to chime in. This is a practice version as well, so I get to look up at the screen, get used to reading people's chat while I'm drawing at the same time. Weather update. It's cooling off here in LA. However, I still have the air conditioning blowing. So if you hear the fan and it's too this is a preseason run. Thank you, Lalimet. I had it on mute earlier. That's why this is preseason. I gotta get all this. I gotta remember I have a cheat sheet. I gotta add that to the cheat sheet. Remember to turn mic back on. So as I was saying earlier that everybody missed, welcome to the third preseason run edition. I'm calling this preseason run where I'm getting all the bugs out in terms of technical issues and stuff, and just learning how to stream. So this is a very kind of rough around the edges version. Hopefully what the show will be like. The show we're looking at launching hopefully in 2 more weeks. The week after San Diego. Next week is San Diego, starting next Wednesday. And the Teen Titans number 20 comes out the following Wednesday. So I'm hoping to stream officially for the first time that Tuesday. That's kind of my target goal right now. Thanks for tuning in. Lalamet, what are you doing up so early? Well, I guess it's 10 o'clock your time, right? In Toronto. Are you from Toronto? We chatted yesterday on Michael's stream. He has a pretty polished show. I hope at some point I'm able to get it to that kind of quality consistently. Still stress testing my equipment each time, adding a couple of different programs. Oh, you're in Montreal. I was born in Montreal. It's my hometown. Let me, you hearing any reverb? Okay. Yeah, so Montreal, you hang out with Olivier and all those guys out there. Yannick. I imagine all the comic book artists in Montreal getting together, huddling together when it's cold as fudge. I was born in Montreal, but my father was he had gotten his PhD at McGill, and he was working at I believe it was like a paper company. But now, but we moved back to Taiwan before I turned 1. So I only know Montreal a little bit, not too much. I have gone back in my adult years to take in the town, take in the city. It's a beautiful city. More specifically, so back when the Expos were still around, I'd go back and watch them play. Usually the last week of the season, I can catch about two homestands, and get some pretty good seats. Yeah, Yannick's a great guy. Yannick and I we did a show together last year in Indonesia. It was a lot of fun. We ate goat brain. I think I mentioned that in a previous episode. Goat brain, and none of us got sick. Well, I got sick the last day, but not from the goat brain. I think it might have been some water that I might have consumed. Yeah, I took a look at your Instagram too. Good stuff. Are you working professionally right now, or I know Yannick has been doing a lot of stuff for DC. His work is pretty amazing. Also, he had a bunch of he'd done a bunch of commissions. A lot of times, a way to kind of tell, to not necessarily grade, but you can tell a lot of different artists or comic book artists. They might do really amazing or powerful work. On their, their regular comics work, But the commission pieces are really what kind of separates a lot of guys and gals, because there's a lot of times commission pieces are done at shows, so you have to draw on the spot, and there's less room for maybe other tricks or digital techniques. Oh, great. Congratulations. Your comic book is coming out in October. What is it called? I don't have a bot on, so I think people can spam if they wanted to. I am not that. I hope you don't spam. But you can tell everybody. Hopefully people will rewatch this as it progresses. This is not a Puma sneaker, by the way. This is just the design that I did just happened to look kind of like that. But I am looking forward to the new Puma basketball sneakers that are going to come out later this year. Hoping to get a pair, see how they are. You Merlin, being French first. Okay. Does it have something to do with like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, or Merlin? Or am I off base here? I gotta remember what I was talking about. Sometimes in real life I talk about stuff and then I forget because I'm thinking of a couple conversations ahead. And I space out. But Montreal, last I was in Montreal, actually I owe some people in Montreal some artwork. Most notably Rob Steele. I have not forgotten about the piece I owe him. It's sitting on my desk somewhere underneath a pile of papers. So if you go there, tell him that I have not forgotten. Oh, Battlestar Galactica with Knights of the Round Table. Okay. Sounds cool. Sci-fi is man, sci-fi is tough. Sci-fi is a tough sci-fi is a tough nut to crack. Why am I hearing double? I turned off the speakers on the computer. Okay. Alright, maybe this is better now. Yeah, sci-fi is a tough nut to crack. I drew Green Lantern Corps for 2 years. And, each issue takes place in a different planet, different culture, different tech. Not including also just there's like I think there were like 7,000 Green Lanterns, and the writer literally wrote almost 7,000 Green Lanterns in every issue, which just about killed me. But yeah, it's all that design work that really builds the backbone of each story. Even though I think the stories are, you can have the human component in all the stories, of course, for us to be relatable to it. But there's the design work needs to be top notch. So, and that's where you can really transport someone to that completely different place, and then bring them back home with the story components that are more humanizing. So, does this leg seem too long? Here I've done on a separate, on a separate layer. I've done some sketching in the printed version. Red Arrow, who I'm drawing right now, she is standing on a kind of a cliff. Because now we're remastering it, I'm going to make her seem like she's jumping. This leg right here, her right leg is a little bit long. And I feel like it's mostly in this area in the back. So, most of my work actually, and later on moving forward, I'm going to have a couple of different setups. This is one of the setups where it's Photoshop, basically drawing digitally. Another setup I'm going to have is going to be more traditional. I'm going to test that next. Not today, but hopefully next week. Well, coming up maybe like Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to test up a traditional setup. Which will be the bulk of the show. So that way I get a gauge of moving back and forth. I'm planning on doing a couple of sketches. Basically start off with some short minute sketches, 7 minutes, and then move to one long form sketch, which will be a commission. I haven't been doing any commissions in almost 2 years now, very few. And but for the stream, I think I'll start doing a few more, and then possibly giving some away, or making some prints, which will be available either on stream, online, or at shows. Actually, Lalamette, you were at the Montreal Comic-Con last week? Was it last week? How was it? I know it's been going on for a few years now. Each year it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. I actually walked through that convention center last time I was in Montreal, just sightseeing. It's a beautiful convention center from the outside, very colorful. And actually I was staying at a hotel near there. I forgot the name of it, but it's like right on the edge of Chinatown. It's like a boutique hotel. It's very nice. It's small, very modern. Had like a corner room. I was in town for a basketball tournament. This was 2-3 years ago. Sorry, Rob. Mr. Steele. A piece I hopefully is worth a 2 or 3 year wait. Apologize profusely. I don't do a lot of commissions, so. Yeah, did you go to the Montreal Comic-Con? How was it? What are your thoughts about the show? I'm interested in hopefully maybe going one day. any excuse to go back to Montreal, to my hometown, is a welcomed excuse. So I hear good things about the show. Yannick had nothing but good things to say about it when I saw him last year. I was at the... Yeah, I remember, I think it was... Actually, I did a show in Montreal back in the early to mid 90s, whenever it was first at Valiant. Um, and it was a nice show. But I think it was like a 1 day show, if I remember correctly. And it was fairly small, at a hotel meeting center area, but very well run. They had separated us from the dealers room. The artists were in one room and the dealers were another. And unfortunately, it was so busy the entire day that I didn't get to. Usually I like to, especially at the smaller shows, walk around and sign stuff for the retailers if they wanted. If they didn't, then just to meet and hello and thank them for supporting our work. Well, yeah, so Yannick says it's less profitable commission. Well, Yannick's used to making a lot of the big bucks. So um, we'll see. I mean, every show also has its own flavor, too. You have to, when you go into different shows, you need to kind of figure out also what's popular, what's a hit, what do the locals like. I know there's some shows that like sketches on trading cards, like real small size. Other shows they like headshots. Other shows they like full commissions. So, but it's a local show, so I would think any time to do a local show, you don't have to. It's not that much travel expenses or time allocated from that. Get right back home. Get to work the next day if you wanted to. Yeah, so maybe if like the original artwork is not a big thing, then maybe it's prints or something else. But it's also, I mean, I think I just enjoyed to travel to a different city, to experience kind of a different culture, and really get to see kind of like the widespread, how much comics is impacted, and the different ways in which comics also has been impacted. Like for example, or how comics are distributed and read and consumed. Last year I did a show in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and American superhero comics is really big down there, with actually a very formidable history. Some of the earliest Marvel and DC comics were reprinted immediately, almost, after they came out here in the States, in Brazil. So the fans there, their history and background is right there, toe to toe. It's not like a kind of a new thing. It's been there. So, well, the typing's fine. I don't really see a difference in typing. Hopefully, like what I like to do with, I see like what Michael does on his stream, where he gets people to chat from the Discord. Um, I still have to kind of figure out how to do that, and if my setup is able to allocate for the CPU needed, to do something like that. But that would be nice. That would be fun. So were you a big Expos fan, Lelamet? Or you didn't like the Expos? You just like the Canadiens? Actually, you know what I think is pretty cool are the Alouettes right now. I really like their uniforms, especially now that their helmets they've gone kind of retro. I think it's a pretty cool look. Do you get to go to any other shows? So I guess living in Montreal, maybe New York Comic Con or other shows in the States, or Toronto Fan Expo. Or I did the Calgary show, Calgary Expo. That was a very good show. That was. I had never been to Calgary before. I guess that's kind of like the Wyoming or Texas of America. That's okay. I said not a lot of comics guys are sports guys. Oof, what did I do? Okay. I mean, comics itself is such a isolating career. You have to spend so much time on your craft just to perfect it. Hello, Master Circuit. How are you doing? Welcome to the show, preseason edition. This is kind of like the summer league for NBA. Although I've already made the team. However, I'm trying to work out all the bugs here in the system. So, how do you like working with Adam Glass on Teen Titans? Adam is quite literally a genius. The stories that he's written, my 26 years of working as a comic book artist. I started in '92, maybe before some of you guys were born. There is so much character and enthusiasm in the stories. It is such a pleasure to draw. It's you almost want to you want to sit down and get going. And there's so many different interpretations in terms of storytelling opportunities. Because Adam brings a lot from his television. Why are you Master Circuit? Is your name Adam also, as in Adam Glass? I think there's a lot of great character play back and forth. I'm reading it. I'm envisioning it. It's easily, well, I shouldn't say use words easy or things like that. But I get from the get-go exactly what he's trying to do in terms of the team, the characters, the interactions. A team book is very different than a solo book. You have many different voices that are going on. and he's able to find each and every um, unique spots right there with all the different characters. So we have um, Damian Wayne. He is the kind of leader of the crew. He's the one that's been going around and putting together this team of his, and along with Kid Flash, Wallace West, Red Arrow, um, who are kind of like the senior leaders here. And then there are three other brand new members. There's Roundhouse, this guy in the blue in the lower left-hand corner that you see. There's the Jinn, or Jinn. It's Dijin, spelled D-J-I-N-N. Jinn. She's a genie. And then there's also here's Crush, who is, if you guessed it, yes, Lobo's daughter. So they all have kind of unique skill set that they bring to the team. Damian has to be able to, at certain parts, hone that, get the best out of everyone. What did you think of his? Did you read his Suicide Squad work? Or do you watch, I think is it Supernaturals that he's the executive producer of? I don't get to watch too much television these days. Mostly, I am the anti-Lalamet. I watch, if I do get to watch anything, it's sports. In terms of television consuming. But I'm sure in many other ways we are very similar. Yeah. I think I think everyone is going to be very pleased. Also, he has a book already out, the Teen Titans Special, which came out 2 weeks ago, drawn by Robson Rocha. Which kind of gives a very early precursor to the team. You can kind of check out. There's it's mostly a backstory with not a backstory. It's mostly a story focused with Damian, Kid Flash, and Red Arrow. And then in 2 weeks, our book comes out. Our baby comes out. Our baby is due. Thanks, Lalamet. I think anytime a comic book comes out, I remember, this is a good story. I remember my first professional comic book. I was 20 at the time. I had drawn a fill-in issue of Archer and Armstrong for Valiant Comics. Bob Layton had hired me. And after I finished that issue, it was supposed to come out, I think it might have been November. It started in September. But then they needed help on another book for another fill-in, Hardcore issue number 5. And because I was young and fast, they threw me on the book. And that book actually came out first, Hardcore number 5. So yeah, I think, well, I don't know about the Dr. Mirage issues. Master Circuit. I know you can find them. You might have to do a little digging in some comic shops. Probably find them online. I don't think they reprinted any of the Dr. Mirage stuff. I know they reprinted the Hardcore, which I think they will probably continue to do. That first Hardcore issue had an appearance by Bloodshot. It's one of the first Bloodshot issues. before his. I think it came out before the Bloodshot book came out, or right around the same time. I mean, they were launching. I started right that end of the summer when they were relaunching a lot of stuff, or not relaunching, but they were launching even more issues and more books out before they only had a handful, Magnus, Solar, Harbingers, and then that fall they started coming out with Bloodshot #1 with the chromium cover, Turok. So they had really started beginning to expand their line of books. So going back to that story where Hardcore #5 came out, and I remember I was in the offices that day. Back then, Valiant had a kind of like a bullpen, so a lot of the artists would work in-house. I would work mostly in my dorm room. I was still going to college at the time at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and I'd go into the office to drop off work. And on the way back to the subway station, there would be actually 2 or 3 comic book stores on the way. So that day, I remember they told me when I came into the office, "Hey, your book is out today," and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like." There's a couple different parts. Like one part is when you actually get to work, which is to me now the most fun part. Then doing the work is another layer, and then when the book actually comes out is kind of the completion of that. Although nowadays too, when the book comes out, you still have also reviews or signings and all these other things. But yeah, so they told me the book was out. So on the way back to my dorm, I walked by like two different comic book stores. One of them, I think both of them probably not here anymore, but one of them was, I think it was on 6th Avenue. This is New York City at the time. And it was like it was a walk up. You had to walk up this flight of stairs. It was like I think it was like 1 or 2 levels high. It was pretty deep. And it had, it's kind of like older place, the wood. I still remember, you walk up the wooden stairs. There's the creak. There's the smell when you first enter, and not a bad smell. It's just the smell of books, old books. It's like any kind of bookstore kind of smell. Although comic book stores, you have the newsprint and everything, and so there's a particular romantic aspect to that moment. And then when I got in the store, it was kind of, those comic book stores back then were not very well organized. You're like going into somebody's closet, and I think a lot of times my studio resembles a lot of that organizational skills found in those old comic book stores. I know where everything is, but it's a little cluttered. So I found out where the, hey Walter, how you doing? And I found out where the book was on terms of the shelving and how they had organized it. And I kind of hung out in the back corner, waiting to see if, somebody would come in and pick up the book and buy the book. So it was a lot of fun. It was cool. I think that kind of moment a lot of times get lost now. That kind of level of enthusiasm or just anticipation or anxiety. I mean, but yeah, I sat there, watched, wanted to go up to the guy and say, hey, you should buy that, but I was a little too shy. Excuse me. But sat there for half an hour as the crowd went through, and picked up the book. Few people bought it. As they flip through it, you kind of look at their facial reaction. Are they amazed, or are they like, oh wow, at the moments that you kind of think they're supposed to be doing that, in terms of the drawings that you had, or yeah. And then after that, I went down. I was kind of pumped, and then I went down to the second store, and did the same thing. There was another store further down the street. And then I had to get home. Well, I had to get back to the dorm because I think I had basketball practice. So, I played on the school's team. So I didn't have that much time to like fool around. But actually, if any of you are in Los Angeles, Adam Glass and I will be signing at 3 different stores in 2 weeks when the book comes out. The day the book debuts, July 25th, he and I will be at Heidi Ho's in Santa Monica that Wednesday evening. And then if you can't make it that night due to traffic or work, or just because you're a bum, Saturday, we will be doing 2 signings. One at DJ's Universal Comics in Studio City. That used to be my home base store. I used to live right down the street from there, from their previous location. And then later on in the afternoon, we'll be at, I believe, Collector's Paradise in Pasadena, which is another awesome store. I did a Nightwing signing there, as well as a King, which was my creator-owned book a few years ago with Joshua Fielkoff. So, Walter, I'm basically remastering a double-page spread from Teen Titans number 20 that's coming out, and hope to convert this into a print. Give you guys a quick sneak peek again, going back and forth to see what this is. This is the original piece, the double-page spread, sans the word balloons. Thank you, Lelamet. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to catch you another time. Keep up the good work. Un grand bien, s'il vous plaît. Merci beaucoup. I know Jim Lee talks a lot of German. Those are the only French phrases that I know, even though I was born in Montreal. Or Je m'appelle Bernard. Okay. So you can see what I'm doing is in the story. These guys are infiltrating Brother Blood's lair cult, and so what I'm doing is I'm taking out the background, redrawing some of the elements that would have been hidden due to the story components, such as the cloaks, rendering them out. I think there's maybe a couple more almost done, and then my intent is to kind of finish the bow and maybe turn it into, I don't know if I like the speed lines. What do you guys think? Do you like the speed lines, or do you think I should do it without the speed lines? Just make it a nice graphic yellow. And hopefully have this available as a print for San Diego next week. So that's why I need to finish this today. Been working on my regular Teen Titans stuff, and this morning, I figure I'll carve out, instead of breakfast, I will carve out some time to finish up this bad boy. It'd be nice to have an assistant. Dudashes. Thanks for streaming. Do you like the speed lines? Yeah, I'm kind of like back and forth. I have been very indecisive these days, which is not good. Um, I'm hoping I'm gonna finish all of these details first and then make an executive call. Again, today, if you're just joining us, this is what I'm calling a preseason run edition. This is kind of a practice run. Getting used to looking up, chatting while I'm drawing. It's a very somewhat unnatural kind of feeling. Mostly because I'm used to working by myself and in less clothing. Oh, and actually, if you guys want, this is what it looks like black and white. So this is the original drawing. This also is the digital version. You can see some of the stuff on the bottom. Where like down here. Oops. Where like down here. You know, I've already started adding some digital effects. Once I scan in the black and white line art, it's drawn pencil and ink on paper. Well, after I scan in, even here in the background, like there's still some stuff that I do digitally to fill in. So I email this file, or actually I upload it to the colorist Marcelo Maiello. He lives in Brazil. He and I have been working together for 5-6 years now. We are like peanut butter and jelly. I don't know who's the peanut butter or the jelly, but we're like peanut butter and jelly. So, and Marcello does his magic, and turns it into something amazing like this. There are occasional times where I do color my own work. Just remembered I gotta do something else. But I think for the interior work, interior pages, due to the time restraints, it usually works a little bit faster. And Marcello is just, amazing. So I think he's colored some other super amazing work. Old Man Logan. I don't know, some other stuff. I'm assuming most of you guys are kind of digital, right? Most of you guys do your own digital work. I'm from the old school days. Computers were old Macs, the all-in-ones. Photoshop was, when I first started, very new. At Valiant, they had again a bullpen studio, so everybody worked in-house. Most people worked in-house, and the colors were still done. The colors were still done the traditional way with Dr. Martin's dyes, color dyes, kind of like watercolors. They would scan in actually they would just photocopy, Xerox, the original work. The production department would then reduce it. I forgot what the degree was. Shrink it down to the actual size. They would print out a black and white version, glue it onto, paste it onto another whiteboard, a thicker piece of paper, and then the colorists would have at it and do their magic. Then those files were then sent to the printer, where they would then get CMYK files back, and from there then any kind of other additional corrections or revisions from the printer, but then go straight to print, and in another few months the book is out. I think towards the early 90s, computer coloring was really just beginning. And even then, hey George, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Computer coloring was really just beginning. Most of the coloring work was done via lassoing, where they would use the mouse. They didn't have these, right now I have a Cintiq, drawing on a Cintiq. They didn't have any of that stuff. So the coloring had a different kind of look to it. It's mostly gradients. There were a couple studios that were doing these computer coloring for the companies. But Valiant still had the old traditional kind of watercoloring. Towards the end, towards my end of the run at Valiant, I was there from 92 to 95, 96. Towards the end, the last couple years, they were moving more towards digital coloring. And now everything is digital. Back then at Valiant, they also even had an in-house letterer, Jade. Moeed, I think was his last name. They had him, and I think they had another guy, but Jade did, they would actually letter on the boards. That's the old school way. Traditionally, very, very, the very beginning, or close to the beginning. I don't know if you guys are getting a little comic book history thing here. They would write the stories. So it would be a plot format, very short, brief, abbreviated. Then the artist, the penciler, would come in and lay it out, draw it, tell the entire story, and then they would give it back to the writer, who would then write the dialogue and according to whatever the artist drew. This way, sometimes you can draw stuff that you don't need you don't need to write a word balloon now. You can just draw it and show that action or show that story. Oops. So what they would do too is once the word balloons and the lettering got written up, they would hand the after the pencils to the letterer, and the letterer would draw and write all the word balloons onto the original board, onto the original art paper. And then they would give that to the inker. So there was a step between the penciler and the inker. And that way, like, again, the word balloons covers up a percentage of the paneling. That speeds it up for the inker, that they don't have to, ink some of the backgrounds. So everything was done very much in a team-oriented, one person passing it off to the other. Very kind of a cohesive format. Nowadays, a lot of the stories are full scripts, so the dialogue is pre-written. But I would say that in the last couple of years, DC has made an effort to kind of go back more towards a traditional plot. In Batman Beyond, I was working with Dan Jurgens. Dan is a legend. Um, Dan Jurgens is very well known for mostly, I think, well, he's been in the comics business for a very long time. But one of his more notable contributions is the death of Superman, along with other things, but I'm just really, really shortly summarizing it. But Dan was gracious enough to work in a plot format. That's my preferable working kind of through writing, very brief descriptions, and then allowing me to, as a storyteller, to kind of bring everything to life. So Batman Beyond, most of it was plot format, and then he would go back in there and write the dialogue afterwards. Now, some of the dialogue, he did write some of the dialogue before, but it was back in the old, what everyone calls kind of the Marvel style. Back when Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, all those days, what you would think or consider what Stan Lee would write, most of it was just not a lot, and most of it was the artists, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, all these guys, Joe Kubert, all of them, contributed a lot more to the stories than what these days the artists get credit for. Neil Adams. There's just so many guys. For me, growing up reading comics, even now going to shows and getting to meet some of these guys on a very much more personable basis, it's still, I become a fanboy very quickly. So George, what are you working on today? You doing anything? Are you going to be streaming later? Want to appreciate all of you guys coming on here and checking it out while you suffer through my learning curves here, my getting used to streaming and talking while I'm drawing. Like I mentioned before, usually I'm talking, but I'm talking to myself or I'm talking to the birds. If you hear any kind of chirping in the background, I'm wearing headphones. It's hard for me to hear. Those are my two parrotlets, Beavis and Butthead. They are miniature parrots, and they keep me company in the hot days of summer and cold nights of winter. They mostly listen to what I say, but not all the time. I'm trying to teach them right now to poop on people's heads when visitors come over. Unsuccessful. However, it would be an amazing trick to pull off. And their bird poop is not that bad. I think it's almost, A, it's organic, right? But B, it's because they don't have large intestines, so the food that they eat, they eat almost all around, all day, every couple hours or so they're eating. And then sits in their stomach for a little bit, and then it poops out. So very quickly. So if you ever come over, just when you look up, don't open your mouth, because one of these days they're going to get really good at it. And if it drops on your head, it's just like moisturizer. So I think for the most part, do you guys see anything else that I need to add to this? I think I'm almost there. maybe a couple I want to say I'm almost there. And then it'll be a wrap. And then I'll try to stream again later this week with a traditional art setup at the drawing desk. And then see how that goes. Keep my fingers crossed. Ah, that's right. Did you finish that page with those guys on it? The Chic, I think it was, or the Silk something. Not very good with names. But you had that nice establishing shot of the palace. See where sometimes when you do these revisions, some of the artwork doesn't line up properly. Oh, so it's a different one. Okay, cool. Man. That's right. You did mention that that was your own webcomic. Sorry, got a little confused. So George, how long have you been streaming on Twitch? And have you seen a difference in terms of over that period of time in terms of viewership? Silk King, yes. It's always curious to be these kind of new technologies and see how they have influenced culture, popular culture. I mean, if I was growing up, you told me, hey, you know what? You can actually make a living playing video games from your home. I'd be like, what? You know, it is truly revolutionary. You know, who knows if this is sustainable? It's very interesting to at least attempt. I do think that we also, as an artist, need to adapt to technology. I mean, it used to be when I used to work at, I spent a year working at Disney Interactive. I had taken a slight sabbatical from comics in my early mid-20s, and worked for a year at Disney Interactive designing video games. And when I got there were people that were testers. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You can actually make a living just by playing video games. Although it was not a very fun version, because you're playing video games all day, but you're looking for bugs. You're looking for things that are not working properly. So you're not really like enjoying, I guess, video games. It's almost like, oh, you can have a job eating, but you're gonna have to eat all the poisonous food first, and maybe every now and then you can enjoy something that's super delicious. But now you can actually play video games all day and drive a really nice car. Let's hope that maybe this is a great way to introduce comics, comic book artwork, illustration, and to grow that medium as well. I know everyone here loves comics, grew up on comics, and I'm going to try to find any way possible to promote it. What were some of your first memories in terms of your first comic book that you guys read or bought? Do you guys remember? I started reading comics. Lalamet, who's here earlier, had to leave due to technical issues. I was born in Montreal, but before I turned 1, my parents moved back to Taiwan. Taiwan, at the time, this was the early 70s. There was not a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it was a very young country, still going through a lot of issues in terms of its own government, civil war. It just resolved with mainland China, the communists, and there was. I read about it now. They said there was martial law, but I don't know. Didn't seem like it was like that tremendous of a military kind of feeling. We lived in a smaller suburb of Taipei called Zhongli, where my father was a professor at a university there. Oh, George, so you just started a few months ago. That's cool. So, comics-wise, I know they would have a lot of like Japanese comics, manga that they would then translate to Chinese. I mean, it didn't matter that they translated it to Chinese because I was like 3-4 years old. I wasn't reading anything. I was just looking at the pictures. And if the pictures, if I could understand what was happening through the pictures, then that's all you need. So I had a few favorites growing up. Let's see. You guys can see. This was one of my favorites growing up as a kid in Taiwan, Manzinger Z. He was, of course, a cartoon. Now I gotta figure out how to put it back. Oh, it's gonna sit like this for another couple of weeks now. Manzinger Z was a cartoon, but also they had the comic books. They were all thick, digest size. I'd carry that around everywhere with me. I'd get beat up. I'd get every few months or so if I was a good kid. Didn't create that many problems around the house. And when we visited Taipei, I might get a new edition or new copy. There were also other books my uncles would get me. My uncles and aunts would get me a bunch of new comic books. They knew that I liked it. And then I would read it and I would try to copy and draw the images. So, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac was your first comic, Walter, that I bought at SDCC. What was the first San Diego Comic-Con? So I used to read comics when I was very young. Very different version. Japanese manga comics, sensibilities and storytellings are slightly different, but still, I mean, comics is a magical vehicle for storytelling. I also read a book called Old Master Q, Lao Fuzi. That was another, like, I still read that. That stuff is timeless. And I will have to admit, I was also into Snoopy when I was a kid. But the funny thing with Snoopy was, or Peanuts, was I always thought that Snoopy talked for some reason. I don't know why, but I remember I always thought that he talked. And then when they finally had the Peanuts cartoon special, and I watched it, and I don't remember if it might have been in Taiwan, and I might have been a little bit older, like 5. And Snoopy didn't talk at all. He just went like, ah, and I was like, oh, what a disappointment. I thought Snoopy talked like a talking dog. So, hey Ramlo, how are you doing? Mr. Ramlo, you were a former teacher, or would you like to expose your identity to the rest of the people here? Mr. Ramlo was a teacher in Miami, Florida. In case any of you were wondering if that was a secret identity for something a little bit more devious. Yeah, I think, George, part of it is going back to the streaming question is doing it regularly, consistently, and over time building up a particular following or fan base, but also just being consistent. Knowing that, actually, I'm finding too, I'm only drawing on this left-hand side of the screen. The whole right-hand side is being ignored. Maybe that's just because of the setup. But I'm curious to shine a light on my Cintiq later, see if like one side of the screen is being worn out more than the other. Anyways, just being consistent, I think, really might be key. For me, it's I've just been battling in terms of, well, what can I show? What can I show? I spend the majority of my time working on stuff that you can't really show until it comes out. I think I found a way around it. It's not really a way around it, it's another form of it. Early night. My first San Diego Comic Con was 1992. This was pre-Convention Center expansion. It is now, this will be 26 years later. 26 or 27. Do we count 92, then 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 27 years later. All right, Mr. Ramlo, thanks for stopping by. We hope one day Mr. Ramlo will be streaming as well. But thank you. Always a pleasure. I'm really bad at math. I got a D plus on AP Calculus when I was in high school, which is already like, it's one thing to take AP Calculus, to get into AP Calculus, but that was my senior year in high school. I don't recommend this to any of you, but I wanted to test how smart I was without studying the entire year, and I got a D plus in AP Calculus. So it's not really anything to brag or write home about. Yeah, I was just more focused on other things, extracurricular activities. So to me, I knew I was going to an art college, which ended up being Pratt Institute. I knew I was, my first choice was actually Rhode Island School of Design. But Pratt Institute gave me a full scholarship. So, and they had a basketball team. So I was more interested in extracurricular activities in high school. I was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, school newspaper. And at the same time, I was also the student government president. So in many cases, I can kind of understand what's going on in today's political atmosphere, because not only was I the president of the school student body, I also controlled the newspaper and what all of the students saw on a monthly basis. And we published 8 editions. So that was a feat in itself. But I mean, it was also high school, so what we were more concerned about was our school mascot, which was called the Fighting Pigeons, and TGIF Friday parties, TGIF parties on the deck of our school, where I organized a couple wet t-shirt contests and some pie eating contests. So that's where my head was back then. I was 16, 17. But those are good times. Let's see, maybe add some details to the cape. Let's see if I can. And I went to high school in Miami, Florida. So, thank you, Yojimbo. Yes, Ai Weiwei was organizing wet t-shirt contests in high school. Thus, how I was able to have enough testosterone to grow this beard early on in life. But it wasn't technically, technically it was a wet t-shirt contest, but in order to skirt around the rules, I had the girls wear rain ponchos over whatever they were wearing already, and then a white t-shirt on top of that. And then it was really a water balloon toss. So, my friend Gonzalo was one of the culprits who so I said, look, you got 2 people standing on both sides and wet balloon toss, and of course the balloon is going to break eventually, because the further distance you go and the bigger the wet, the more water in the water balloon, it's going to splash. And so we wanted to see what was the distance that you can go before it splashes. So that was the premise of it. It wasn't technically called a wet t-shirt contest, but that was what was the working title. And eventually, Gonzalo had enough of the long toss because the water balloon would not break. And so he started throwing the water balloons into the crowd, and it became a big water balloon fight. I got reprimanded for it, but it was all right. I think everybody had a good time. Those were the days when you could get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, all that bullshit about permanent record, that was just trying to get people to stay in their lanes. But maybe Mr. Gramlow will be able to pontificate on that later next time. Yeah, so we did that. We had a pie eating contest. I made pies, like cream pies. No, I made mousse pies from like not Jello, but like mousse or whip. No, it was like not Cool Whip, but it was like some kind of Dream Whip. Dream Whip. That was delicious. I love that. I should have labeled it a science experiment. Technically, a biology experiment with a science experiment. I would have gotten even more, maybe extra credit for some of that stuff. Yes. And we actually did it twice. They actually let me pull it off a second time. So I did one early in the semester, just to test the waters of our teachers and supervisors to see how much we can get away with. They were really just mad at the water balloon fight, not so much about the. I don't think they got what I was. Maybe they did, but they were very relaxed. The teachers were pretty cool. We had some cool teachers in our high school. So the pie eating contest, I made some Dream Whip. Man, I love those. I can't eat those anymore. I don't know if they still have them. Do you guys know if they still make Dream Whip? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like a mousse, but like a chocolate, kind of like whipped cream. My mouth is watering. So I made all these pies. I got the tin pie dish. Made it, filled it with the Dream Whip, and then the next week we had maybe it was a few weeks later. We had a pie eating contest. My friend Rudy volunteered. So if you're a friend of mine in high school, you volunteered for a lot of this stuff. And unfortunately for Rudy, I forgot to fold the tin all the way back. So afterwards, he had a lot of like cuts on his lips. So I'm sorry, Rudy. Even to this day, I still remember. I hope you were not scarred for life. But that was cool. No, and I didn't have Gonzalo partaking in that contest because I didn't want him to start throwing the pies into the crowd, based off of his earlier water balloon toss contest. So those were high school days in Miami. Went to a high school called New World School of the Arts. It was an art high school based in Miami, Florida, downtown Miami. It was a new magnet school. They termed the magnet school. You had to audition to get in. Once you got in, though, and you had to audition in either one of the 4 arts: dance, music, theater, and visual arts. Once you got in, there was a state-funded school, so all your art supplies were paid for. We had the best teachers. You still had to take your academics, hence the AP Calculus. But then in the afternoon, we had, we had 4 classes in the morning, which were all your academics. In the afternoon, you had 4 more classes, but 3 of them were your art majors. And then you have 1 more kind of like a academic elective. But because it was a new school, we had a long leash. Even though all eyes were on us, the teachers were very relaxed, very progressive. They knew that, you had a bunch of art students. You're gonna have to have a little bit of a leeway. Let them express themselves. And the school is still around today. I mean, actually, there was a alumni reunion a few weeks ago, and there are quite a lot of famous alumni. Yeah, Yojimbo. There is a Dream. No, not Miracle Whip, because Miracle Whip is like a hey Eric, what's going on? Thanks for stopping by. How's it going? Eric Cadetti's in the house. Were you streaming today? Are you streaming today? 7 o'clock? I noticed you didn't stream the last couple days. I've been getting up early in the morning. It's like a ritual. And so this is what I'm doing is I'm remastering a double page spread from the upcoming Teen Titans 20 due out in stores. This is the original page. Okay, 0% stream until Monday. And then I'm re-adding the details and hopefully going to make a print out of this in time for San Diego next week. Everything's last minute. This is the original black and white. And so I'm just testing out kind of different things right now. Getting used to talking to people while I'm drawing. And thanks. Yeah, just trying to get used to this whole streaming thing. Making sure the computer is able to function well enough so that there's not that much lag. Otherwise, I'm still going to be probably getting a new computer this year, but I want to wait until later in the year when they're come out with some new stuff. Because I'm on Macs. So, are you on a Mac or are you on a PC? Because I noticed like Jim Lee's on a PC, but he has a Mac in the background. But I think he's only using a PC. So at first I was thinking, do I need to just get a PC dedicated to streaming? And Eric, are you here to get in my head and to fuck up this creative process that's going on right here? Yeah, this Mac too. It's old. It's 2012, late 2012. I haven't upgraded it in years. Usually I upgrade my computer every have a rotation of 3 or 4 years. Every 3 or 4 years I'll update a laptop. Every 3 years I'll update a laptop, and then the next couple years I'll update the desktop. But this one has been working okay for Photoshop. I haven't really been doing any kind of film editing or anything like that. But now now that I'm starting to stream, it's like, man, I should have bought a new computer a couple years ago. But thank you for your support. Yeah. This is a trip, though. It's very interesting. Eric, how long have you been streaming? I've noticed that you've had on your Instagram for a while now. You've been promoting Twitch stream. So I gotta say, you are probably one of the OGs, one of the original gangsters to streaming in terms of as an artist, as a pro. And I also noticed that you are very, very consistent in terms of your scheduling. That was actually a question I was going to ask you in person if I see you next week in San Diego. Like, I noticed you're almost up every day at 7 streaming. And, like, man, how do you do that? I guess the other part, too, is... streaming, doing the artwork, finding the balance between everything. And have you seen, I guess another question is, have you seen an improvement, or has this generated a different way of drawing, of looking at things? I'm always curious about that. How new technologies and everything might affect personal work, working styles. And hopefully the more people that stream, the merrier, because then there'll be more to watch. I actually enjoy, sometimes I'll say I'll have your stream on in the background, but I might not be able to watch it. I just listen to some of the things that you say, or some of the things, like, you know, also watch Jim's stream. It's like working in a studio with some other people around you. And actually sometimes I might learn something. Well, almost every time you learn something new. But I did note that it is very difficult to talk and draw sometimes at the same time. Because sometimes you're just focusing. It's not a particular thing that you're used to, or I'm used to. A lot of times when I'm drawing regularly at home, I'm focused on the line art and trying to make a perfect line. And so talking about it at the same time sometimes is I'm like, ugh. So I guess with anything, there's a level of learning curve getting used to. Yeah, Eric is Eric's stream is very fun, and you know, it's not just fun too, but I mean, you look at the amazing work that comes out of it. To think that, wow, this guy is talking and drawing at the same time, which is very difficult for an artist. Most artists, even drawing in public, I know at first, when I was younger, just to draw in front of other people or have other people look at your drawings while you're drawing, it was like very intimidating. Um, Eventually, I think you maybe reach a point where you're kind of comfortable with it. You're just like, F it, fuck it, I don't, whatever. I'm just gonna draw what I'm drawing. Um, but then also to draw and talk about it is another layer. Um, And then having, I guess the other part is to have a list of interesting things to talk about, making a cheat sheet that I have up on top of the computer that you guys can't see. So that if I run out of something to talk about, I can refer to that and keep things moving along. I find that I can stay on a stream if the person keeps talking about whatever randomness. I mean, we were talking about wet t-shirt contests earlier that I would throw in high school. Let's see. I think I'm really getting too nitpicky now in terms of detail. We are pretty much nearing the end of what I think is work for this particular piece. Sometimes you can overwork something. I know I'm forgetting something. Roundhouse. Wet t-shirt contest that I arranged, yes. And that's Miami. Here's another thing I found. This was a revision piece. This is another part of the arm. Eventually, at some point, technology is going to get so good that for artists, you can probably just draw something and maybe a computer might be able to replicate that. Teach it how to draw. But drawing with people in front of you is a daunting task. A lot of it is because you're making mistakes. You're erasing, and you want to seem perfect. And there are very, very few people in the world that are capable of drawing something without making a mistake. And I even hesitate to use the word mistake. But to draw something without erasing. It's almost built into the vocabulary in terms of drawing. I'm used to not worrying so much about a particular pencil line that a lot of times I'm exploring and figuring it out. There are times where, and I guess we'll talk probably more about this when I do like an actual live drawing stream. There are times where I've already seen the piece before I started drawing it, but there are also times where it's an exploratory process. Actually, it's very interesting. I was just watching comedians in Cars with Coffee, or the Jerry Seinfeld thing, and he had Dave Chappelle on, and they were talking about as for comedians, Um, I believe, I don't want to get it wrong, but if you guys can always also watch it yourself, how sometimes they need to develop ideas, and part of developing an idea is like getting in a car, and just having the idea drive you around. Um, Sometimes you're in the driver's seat, sometimes you're in the front passenger seat, sometimes you're in the trunk. But you just got to go along with the idea and see where it goes, and sometimes it goes into a beautiful, magical place. Um, then also, Chappelle mentioned that sometimes your ego takes over, and you want to say, "Hey, I gotta get in the driver's seat," and sometimes that doesn't necessarily work either. So it's very true, in kind of in terms of creative, um, in terms of craft, even though it's a different craft. The creative process has its own unique principles and properties, and sometimes you gotta let it take you where it has to go. Um, uh-oh. But process is key. Yeah. So I think yesterday or the other day, I was watching Eric's stream, and he was just beginning to start drawing something. And like, to me, that's the most fun part. Um, that's one of the most unique parts in an artist's process. And it's also the part where you're most vulnerable, because you are at a stage where nothing is really set yet. You haven't really committed to too much in terms of your drawing. And you could be going back and forth, drawing stuff over and over again. So it's a part where, see, I'm like thinking and then not talking, where it's you're very vulnerable. You don't want to see people. You don't want to see people watch you erase stuff. But later on, you'll see that eventually everyone makes mistakes, and again, not mistakes. I like to erase a lot when I'm drawing with a pencil. I tend to go through one of those. I have one of those Pentel click erasers, so I'll run through a few sticks per issue. It is I mean, I buy them by the boxes, so because I don't ever want to run out of eraser. If I run out of eraser, that's when I'm like, oh, that's when it gets scary. I never watched that, Yojimbo. Yoji. The Tom Hanks Sally Field movie called Punchline. You got me there. Actually, no, it's an old movie, is it? I might have seen it. I used to watch a lot of movies growing up um, because I was an only child and spent a lot of time at home. Um, I think when I was younger, I would say my favorite comedians. Um, One of my favorite comedians was Howie Mandel, and he would do that voice of Bobby. And what else? Eddie Murphy. Um, they only had like back then. They had like there was stand up, but I guess I was too young to really watch a lot of stand up. And so the only comedies would be like these big whatever specials they had on cable. Um, Richard Pryor. But Howie Mandel had one or two specials, and oh, and Steve Martin. Who can forget Steve Martin? I think Roundhouse has a red stripe on his shoe. If not, this would be the special red stripe shoe variant. Here's something that I think I mentioned this in the previous stream. You know, I really like shoes, and I'm curious as to why more artists, especially artists that are drawing superhero stuff, put an emphasis on whatever gear the heroes are wearing, especially in particular shoes. Yeah, Eddie Murphy special. We had the was it the red leather jacket or purple leather jacket? I'm getting Thriller and but he has some kind of leather jacket on. Raw, Eddie Murphy Raw. Um, I don't remember the bathroom one. Yeah, Howie Mandel was like a germaphobe now. Back then he had like Bobby did a bunch of different other bits. Um, Steve Martin was great because um, he just had these outrageous kind of characters. So as a kid, that's kind of what I was drawn to, I guess, like these funny, outlandish characters that then we could mimic. And Jim Carrey, like in his high school, Jim Carrey came out with The Mask, or Ace Ventura was really one that we kind of rode all through high school, in terms of just repeating lines. Chris Rock was another good one. I think that was a little bit later. Um, so even now, like as I work, I think I've ran through all of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. I ran through most of their comedy specials. Because when I work, I'll put something on in the background and just listen to it. Visually, it's very difficult to look up while I'm working at the same time, or even occasionally. So I like to have stuff just like running in the background, listening to it. Usually, sometimes it's music, Um, Sometimes it's podcasts, and then there's a balance of like comedy specials. So like my favorite comedian right now, aside from Dave Attell, is what's his name? The British guy, Carr, not Bill Carr. Not, any of you? I'm gonna have to. I don't want to open up a Netflix window. Billy Carr, Bill Carr, is a British comedian. He's like my favorite right now. But Dave Attell also. Dave Attell. But Dave Attell hasn't put out, and I like Aziz Ansari, but Dave Attell hasn't put out any, he hasn't put out like a new album in a while, right? I mean, if he has. And, audiobooks. That's right, Yoji. Audiobooks too. Listen to a lot of audiobooks, especially the ones with like, from comedians, because that's like a whole comedy special in itself, because they will be announcing their own, reading their own books. That's the best. I mean, like, I just got the JB a few months ago. I got the JB Smooth one. And oops. So, audiobooks has been. Now, here's a big question. If you listen to an audiobook, can you say that you read it? And you say, hey, I read that book, but you really just listen to the audiobook version of it. Yeah, no, the Fresh Off the Boat by Eddie Wong. Yeah, those, because I know Eddie, so it's like you listen to him and it's like he's talking to you. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like with these audiobooks is um, you're listening to them in your headphones or whatever, and it's like they're talking to you, and they have great personality. They even sometimes tell different stories or side stories that aren't in the book. So they're like all these golden nuggets that are that you don't get when you're reading it. Um, Although there is another level of experience when you actually read it yourself. Um, but I prefer the audiobooks, especially when they're biographies. Yeah, we had somebody read it to me, so it's close enough. Yeah, it's both of Eddie's books. Plus, they just had a short story come out on Amazon that he read too. Yeah, so and it takes a particular skill to, you're not just reading it. I mean, you have to, you're reading about your own life, your own autobiography. Um, so you're reliving that moment, uh, but also you have to read it with emotion and character. And you've already written it, so but you have to reread it again, and that's a whole other. Do you guys have any recommendations for uh audiobooks or books or biographies in general, or comedians? I'm always open for recommendations. That is something that is well, first of all, some of you guys I don't know yet, but if you give me one and then I'm like, oh, this is horrible, I will still give you a second chance, but then that's it. Two chances and that's it. So, Untold History of Marvel audiobook. Yeah, I mean, there's if you think about it, there's also people that have a whole career just based off of um, reading audiobooks, and they get paid very well to do that stuff. Um, so there's all these careers that are going back to it, circling back. If I had a kid today, um, I would tell them that, hey, you can do whatever you want, pave your own path. Robin's foot would actually be there. Would we miss it if I didn't draw it? I'll draw it in. What have I got to lose? Even comics in itself. No, I'm gonna save this for another episode. But even breaking into comics, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking. I mean, a lot of people come up to me at shows and ask me how I break into comics, or sometimes I'm doing. I give like these lectures and keynote speeches. One of the biggest questions is like, "Hey, how did you break into comics? What are the steps necessary?" And with any kind of like creative format, there's not really one or two steps. A lot of it is being prepared. Being prepared and then being lucky. If you're prepared, then when the opportunity comes, you can take advantage of it at a faster rate, more efficiently. So, like being prepared in terms of comics as well. Okay, have a portfolio. If you have a portfolio with some sample pages in there, you know that when the time comes, if you happen to bump into somebody or be at a convention, you're not cramming to get stuff done the night before. You're ready to go and showcase what you have. And all that stuff has to be done beforehand, right? Because you have to go through different kind of step processes, revisions, personal revisions. Don't want to just show up last minute with some stuff that you just came up with. Mankind has an autobiography. I used to be a huge wrestling fan when I was young, junior high. I just watched the Andre the Giant documentary on HBO. Brought back a lot of memories. Yeah, I had a buddy in junior high, Seth Sherman. Seth, if you're out there, hello. Hope all is well. Seth's dad had tickets. So we went a few times. I mean, I don't know how he got them. I thank you, Seth's dad. I hope I thanked him back then. Hope I remember to thank him back then. Looking back as I was watching the documentary, I remember Seth's dad taking us to the James L. Knight Center in Miami, Florida, where they would hold. This was before they had a big arena. This was before the Miami Arena, before the American Airlines Arena. They had the James L. Knight Auditorium or Center downtown, and that's where like most of the concerts and everything were held at. And not only did he have tickets to the WWF events, they were like awesome seats because they were like front row or second row. So imagine we were like 13, 14 years old, kids, and WWF would roll into town, and we're like right there on the those barricade things, holding our hands out as the wrestlers would walk by into the arena. Um, I remember Andre the Giant's hand, like he could have, his hand could have covered my entire torso. It was like so big. Um, and I remember like him, Bret the Hitman Hart was there. He was at that time he was like a bad guy. It was him and his brother, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and oh, so Randy Macho Man came once. Um, yeah, so that was a big. Girl used to work with her father beat up Macho Man and his brother in high school. Yeah, I mean back then wrestling was um, a ton of fun, and just even watching the documentary on Andre the Giant, watching how they dealt a little bit into the business and how it was very regional. Um, yeah. So thank you again, Seth's dad, Mr. Sherman. Um, those were childhood memories that will live forever. Very influential in terms of just being there live. I mean, watching it live was a completely different thing than watching it on television. Um, and you can kind of see some of the where they would take the pitfalls or where the punches didn't connect a little bit more clearly live in person. Um, but still, it was. Why is this not? Here's another thing. Sometimes I accidentally click. My left hand is on the keyboard. So sometimes I click quick mask, and I'm sitting there for like just now. Like I'm sitting there for like a few minutes, like wondering like why is this not working? Because I was in a quick mask. So I'm still not mastered Photoshop, even though I've used it. I only know how to do enough of. Basically taught myself Photoshop, so I only know enough to do this stuff. Randy Poffo was Macho Man, right? Wow. Yeah, and back then I didn't like Roddy Piper, but like now I like love Roddy Piper. So I guess some of the stuff that you resonate with as a kid versus as an adult, very different. Like my favorite was one of my favorite wrestlers was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean, because there's like not a lot of Asian heroes out there, so Ricky was. And I remember they also had WWF Saturday nights instead of I think one season they had a horrible Saturday Night Live season, so instead of Saturday Night Live a couple of weeks, they would have WWF Wrestling. And that's when Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Hulk Hogan teamed up. And they had a couple of tag team matches, I think. And they were both wearing the white trunks. And I was like, yes. And then they stopped having them. So I was like, oh, what happened? But yeah, those are pretty cool. And then WrestleMania, I think before the transition to like the Steve Stone Cold Austin days, I kind of then stopped watching wrestling as much. Mostly, I think, because I was at that time then in high school and then going to college. And in high school, I had to plan for those wet t-shirt contests, so I didn't have time. I was either watching wrestling or plan for wet t-shirt contests in high school. So I think I chose the latter. And then in college, no, I didn't hardly watch. Actually, in college, there were 2 years I didn't have a television. First 2 years in school I didn't have television, and then I got a lot of work done, by the way. So if any of you have issues with productivity, get rid of that television. I got a ton of work done, and then my first paycheck from Valiant, which was my first professional employment, I bought a Sega Genesis and a television. So, which were probably the two. I still have the television, and I still have the Sega Genesis, and I still occasionally play on the Sega Genesis. It still works. The television has become a footrest, but I still refuse to throw it away, even though I have been harassed to getting rid of that thing. It was a small 13-inch Samsung television. Yeah, I wonder. So where is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Yoji? Is he? Do you know where he is in terms of like? Is he in Los Angeles? Is he in New York? Is he in somewhere? But Sega Genesis, that was it was not my first video game console, but it was one of the most memorable. I mean, my roommate had it, and I felt like instead of like constantly going over and harassing him and asking him, "Hey man, can we play?" Or I was just like, "Man, fuck it, I just get my own." Oh, there's a mistake here. So I got my Sega Genesis, and then people just kept coming over to play. Actually, it's how I made a lot of friends. There's even one friend that very dear to me. We did not become good friends until we played video games together. He actually did not like me very much. No, I don't know why. I mean, I'm such a likable guy, but yeah. So it was Joe Montana Sports Talk Football was the game that I got. And we played video games so much that I even one year chose a dorm room in college based on the proximity to other friends. I had a friend named Ivan, and I can tell this story because his wife knows by now. But back then in college, Ivan was dating Yoli. Hello, how are you guys doing? And Ivan came to me. We would play, NHL, NBA, the sports talk game. After that initial Joe Montana Sports Talk, the other later versions were not that good. So, and this was also kind of before. I think they might have had Madden, but Joe Montana was much better than Madden back then. And they had Tecmo Bowl, but I still like Joe Montana. So anyways, Ivan would come over and play, and we would play with a bunch of other guys, Duran, Kadir, Mr. Sanchez. And but one day Ivan came to me and said, Bernard, he had a sad face. He's like, Bernard, I can't play anymore because my girlfriend, who lived in Miami and we were in Brooklyn, his girlfriend was like, his girlfriend wanted him to stay in his room and do homework and not hang out in my room every night until 2 a.m. playing video games. So I was like, oh man, that sucks, because this was, there was internet, but it was AOL CompuServe. It's not like it was today. There's no wireless. Everything had to be hardwired, connected, plugged into the wall. So I went to Ivan. I was like, all right, man, don't worry about it. I got a solution for us. Just hold on. Don't give up on our video game playing days just yet. So I went down to the local hardware store and I got a like the longest phone cord that they had that plugged into the wall phone cord. And Ivan's room was directly below mine, so I was on the fourth floor and he was on the third floor, or something like that. So went back to the dorm room. I opened my window. I said, Ivan, open your window and I lowered the phone cord down to his room, and I said, we gotta also, I think we tied it to the edge of the window so it wouldn't flap around too much. Made it kind of tight. I said, plug it into your wall and then come upstairs. And I was like, I could see he was very hesitant. He was unsure. He did not want to lose the love of his life, but at the same time, he wanted to continue to play video games. So I said, trust me, this will work. So he went, plugged it into his wall, came upstairs. I took the other end, plugged it into my phone. And he's like, what if Yoli calls? What if she calls while we're playing? I said, well, if she calls while we're playing and everything works accordingly, my phone should ring. And therefore, you can tell her that you're still in your room because she's calling your number. So sure enough, we're into a game, and I think it's like the third quarter or something, and the phone rings. I'm like, well, if the phone rings, you got to pick it up because it's technically your room. And sure enough, it was Yoli. She was a little skeptical at first that he would be in his room working. So she says, hey, don't worry, just hang up and call back. Keep calling back if you don't believe I'm in my room. And we got away with it for the next couple of years. Until Ivan's roommate snitched on us. We haven't forgotten. Yeah, see? The Joe Montana Sports Talk Football was the best. When it was going horizontal. Not the one when they switched, the following year they switched it and it was going vertical. It's still the one where it's horizontal. But also with with those old games, I'm not sure. I haven't played games in a while, but with the old games, there were ways of there were glitches, right? There were things that you could do, like plays that you could do every time to score. So our friend Kadir, he would run this one single play every time, and it was a pass option play. But if you covered the receiver, I forgot what team he would use, but if you covered the receiver, he would then run with the ball and outrun you and still score, literally off of almost every single play. So if you covered the run, he would throw the ball, and so if you play like a pass defense, he would run the ball in and score. If you ran a run defense, he would then pass the ball and score that way. So it was so frustrating. So at some point I said to Ivan, Ivan, I got a secret plan for us. This is how we're going to beat Kadir, right? I'm going to sit on his left side, and you're going to play him. You're going to sit on his right side. So we're going to sandwich him. And what I'm going to do is, while you're playing, I'm going to look at Kadir's hand and see which play he chooses. Because there's only like 3 plays, A, B, or C. There's only like 3 buttons on the Sega Genesis. So I would tell you like which play he's choosing. That way you can kind of at least have a clue. And how I'll tell you is, if he does a run play, I'll rub my nose. And if he chooses the pass play, I will rub my ear. And so we start playing. He's like, I don't know if that's gonna work. I said, trust me. So we sit down, we start playing, and Ivan is stopping Kadir every time. And so Kadir's getting frustrated because he's used to dominating us just purely off of those two plays. And at one point, I mean, it became so funny. But at one point, Kadir was like, man, I don't know what's going on today. But it's like as if you're reading my mind and you know what every play I'm calling. Yeah, I don't think we told Kadir. I mean, we told him eventually, but it took a while. See, AP Calculus doesn't teach you any of that stuff. But planning for wet t-shirt contests does, because you find a way around it. Yoji, what games do you play now? You play a lot of video games? Do you guys see anything else that I need to add to this? Or otherwise, I'm calling it. And you can't really see too, I also have a bunch of layers going on. Probably more layers than I really need, but this is more so my personal habit of wanting to have enough leeway to go back and make revisions. I don't play many. I haven't played video games or any modern games. There was a friend of mine that we used to play NBA 2K or Madden on the PS3. This is how long ago it was. Regularly. And I think his wife was not very happy with that. This is, much older now in our adult years. And I was unable to circumvent any other fixes like the telephone scam or the reading of the play scam, because now we have wives and kids to deal with. Or he had a wife and a kid to deal with. Although I was at E3 a couple weeks ago, and that was a ton of fun. Watching how much video games has evolved over the years. Yeah, I'm trying to catch everything. I still haven't figured out there's a few oh, okay, one more thing. Let's see. I do need to do this. Adding another layer. Let's hit save real quick. Yoji, where are you based out of? I forgot to ask this last time. And do you know how how to do that Discord thing where you can talk. Um, DC. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like where you're talking, you patching in to Michael's stream. Like how did that work? I would like to test that out to see if my computer is able to handle that. I do have a Discord server, so I need to mention that I have a Discord server so everyone can sign on. Although I don't know how to do that. It. I was like a lab animal banging the keyboard the other day, just setting it up, and then figuring out how to join. Like I joined Michael's and I joined Jim Lee's, but I didn't know how to do much on it. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I tend to have a problem with overthinking things sometimes. Um, I mean, like in school, I didn't do so well in math because, like, at first sometimes the answers came fairly quickly, but then I'm like, oh, that's too simple. That can't be it. It has to be something else. But I guess there's a voice option component to Discord. I did remember seeing that. But then how do you activate that for the channel? I guess is my question. Okay. Do you want to try that right now? Yoji? Do you have time? Okay. Do I need like a I remember when I signed up for Discord, it was asking me like this invite code for people. Okay. Uh, give me one. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, and I'm back. Thank you for the wait. I had to go number one. Okay, so let's see. I was about to explode. Even though you wouldn't be able to see it, I just didn't want to clean up. So, I have a general voice chat. So, do you need like a link to my Discord? Yeah, well, maybe 1.5, not a full 2. What's up, Daylight Phoenix? Thank you. Yeah, it's just a 1.5. 2, I have to stay on there and enjoy it. 1.5 would be quick. So instant invite, go to advanced settings. Okay. Yeah, I remember something about not having the link change. Okay. Where is the instant invite? Create an instant invite. Copy. Paste. Boom. I guess a nightbot or some kind of bot or moderator would help with that stuff. Well, that's just the instant invite to the general page. Should I be creating an instant invite to the voice channel? Okay, I see Yoji on there. All right. What next? I mean, please be gentle with me. This is my first time. Voice connected. Hello? Because also, like, I noticed on Michael's thing, like, your icon comes up on the upper left-hand corner to see who's talking. And would I need to add a audio in? Would I need to add an audio in to my... Would I need to add a audio in? Well, I'm doing it from the Discord app. Should I add it in the voice channels or the text channels? But if I post up the create instant invite to the voice channel general, then wouldn't everybody see it? And then everybody starts getting in on it? Or maybe I can turn that on and off. Hey, Daylight Phoenix, what is that crown that's next to your name? What does that mean? I'm still new to Twitch, so some of these things. Oh, okay. This Abstract Phoenix is on now. I'm so excited. Oh, okay, because I have one too. That makes sense. Yeah, that Twitch Prime from Amazon. Yeah. These icons things I gotta get used to. Plus, I'm gonna make like these emoticons or. So, Yoji, anything else I need to do? Oh. Let me get back to drawing. Okay. Oops, excuse me. Yes, it means you have Amazon Prime. Amazon. Oh yeah, yep. But what about this audio thing? Or maybe we should save that for another day. Use quick switcher to get around Discord quickly. Just press Command K. Do I need to connect my Twitch? I think it's connected. Voice connected. Oh, you're working on it. Have you already taken over my computer? Because there's a lot of stuff happening with the skull and well, pretty soon it'll be I have blue tape that covers all my webcams. And I think once we figure this out, I might be signing off soon. It is 10 o'clock almost on the West Coast. I need to start jumping onto my regular Teen Titans work. Mikey Mega, Mikey Mega, how you doing? Welcome to my preseason run. This is what I'm calling a preseason run edition. Trying to get all the bugs out, working out, practicing. How to stream, how to talk to people, how to get used to looking at the screen and drawing and talking and answering people's questions and stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to launch my more regular show in 2 weeks. I'm looking at soft target date being Tuesday the 24th right now. You heard it here, Tuesday the 24th. Right now is soft target date. There's just too much work needed to be done before San Diego. Plus San Diego is next week, so things will be very limited then. But yeah, so this is a piece from Teen Titans number 20. This is the double page spread. If you guys have already purchased Justice League number 1, drawn by Jim Chung, there's a preview, first 5 or 6 page preview in that book. I believe in June there were a bunch of other DC Comics that had a 5 or 6 page preview of the new Teen Titans. This is number 20. It's written by Adam Glass. I penciled and inked, and it's going to be colored by Marcello Maiello. What I'm doing is I'm taking the double page spread and I'm repurposing it, remastering it for a print for available at Comic-Con next week. Yes, I am. This is new to Twitch, so right now I'm just, again, trying to test out all the equipment, making sure the mic works. If you watch the rerun of this, I forgot to turn on the mic for the first couple minutes, so I was talking like this, and you couldn't hear anything. So there are still things I need to get used to. And I even had like music. I thought this time I had the music running. I had, I thought this one would be the one that I would get everything pretty much going correctly, but still learning. And I'm assuming the show, there's going to be some stuff in there that I'm still going to make mistakes of. In the background, you can hear birds chirping. Those are my 2 birds. I have 2 miniature parrotlets, or they're miniature parrots, named Beavis and Butthead. At some point, I think I might let them fly around. So, yeah. I mean, I'm also looking at like 2 or 3 different setups. This being the Photoshop setup. I have my Photoshop, my iMac, and my Cintiq on one station. Behind me, you can see my drawing table. That's another setup where I do traditional drawing, pencil and ink on paper. So the regular show is going to have a mixture of both. I'm going to be doing some quick 7-minute sketches, one long-form commission sketch, which will take a couple of episodes to finish. Bringing in a guest star, guest artist or influencer, talk a little bit about comics, talk a little bit about Twitch or streaming, and just life in general. And maybe playing some games. I'm trying to figure out some like sketch games to play, sketch battles. And then there's a surprise element to the end, which I think you guys will like. So 7 minutes. Also, I got to get used to talking and enunciating clearly. Sometimes I think it's clearly. I'm saying stuff that's clearly clear, but it's not coming out so clearly. But 7-minute sketches, pencil sketches, those are what I'm going to be doing at San Diego. So there'll be quick drawings, and then some of those will be given away to viewers as prizes. I also have some other prizes to give away, and hopefully I'm trying to lock down some giveaways from some corporate entities, so maybe there'll be better stuff than just drawings, but we'll see. So that's right now what I have planned. Eventually the show will hopefully grow and evolve, eventually doing 1 or 2 segments. Maybe also portfolio review is another aspect. I'm gonna have once I figure out this Discord thing. I'm gonna have people email me. Yeah, Beavis and Butthead are not gonna run for freedom. Well, I live in a loft. It's a pretty big space. It's about 1,700 square feet. During the day, technically, they have free reign of the house. The only thing I have to worry about is they poop everywhere. So I gotta follow them and clean up every day. But they also tend to get very loud when they fly around. So, because they get very territorial. And so right now I'm keeping them in the cage. You might hear them occasionally, but they're much quieter when they're in the cage. Yeah, I moved downtown 2004. So right now there's 7 towers going up mid-construction within a square block radius of me. This is my favorite coffee cup. Triple X. This is a hamburger restaurant in West Lafayette, Indiana. It's another one of my hometowns. So, Mikey Mega Mega, are you an artist as well? Do you draw? Do you paint? And most importantly, do you read comic books? And I guess I gotta try to figure out how to do a poll. Like, I guess one poll I could have is like, hey, am I done? What do you guys think? So earlier I went in and I did a gradient. Move this a little bit. What is the icon for zoom? There, that's better. I put a gradient in the back. I'm not really feeling it. I need my buddy Jerry here. This is put some speed lines to see maybe this might help out. Nope, Yoji, I can't hear you. Do I need to have anything else clicked? Okay. Oh. There's your microphone icon is hashed out. So do I need to unselect that or? So Mikey Mega Mega, you also stream mostly manga style. Batman is a great character to get in. Okay. Hey, Brendan Rowe. I just see you just joined the Discord. That's great. We are trying to excuse the what we're doing right now, trying to figure out a little bit of bumps and bruises in terms of getting a audio component up on Discord so we can actually have some of you guys chat with me at the same time. Yoji is helping me set that up right now. Everybody on here at Mikey Mega has been very welcoming and very supportive, very helpful. Oh, okay. Now your icon is off. There's no... So... what if I do this? Hello? Do I need to add another audio input? Well, here's something else, but anyways, thanks everybody for joining the stream so far. This is again a preseason run, so we're still trying to get my bearings together in terms of streaming. Thanks everybody for joining the stream so far. There are some technical stuff that I still need to get used to. I will be looking to stream again either Monday or Tuesday with a setup of drawing. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe try to catch like some crumbs. If Jim Lee streams tomorrow, maybe I can stream after him to get some of his followers to come on here. But we'll see. It all depends on how much work can get done. Regular work. Well, now Yoji, your microphone is off. So the only audio input I have right now on my OBS is my Yeti mic. The mic auxiliary input, I have that switched off. Hopefully the regular show will be a little bit tighter. I think the 7-minute sketches would be fun. I can probably do like 2 or 3 of those. That's half an hour, 21 minutes, but give or take a little few minutes in between. That's half an hour. I'm looking at the show being maybe 2 hours maximum. Half an hour a segment broken down. And then, because I still have to carve out time to do my regular work. So 2 hours, maybe once or twice a week. Right now starting once a week with a secondary kind of special stream to focus on one of those aspects. There's also portfolio reviews. If you guys want to send pages that you've done, I can take a look. I'm very blunt. I'm very... I don't like to sugarcoat things. I did teach a class, sequential illustration at Art Center College of Design a few years ago. But if any of you have gotten your portfolios reviewed by me, I hope I have helped in some way. That I think I can do digitally, because then I can redraw in Photoshop over some of the stuff. But more importantly, I think portfolio design, portfolio review or storytelling review is going to be... All right, Yoji, don't worry about it. Again, it's not... don't worry about that. I think maybe we can try another day. I think I'm going to kind of wrap up now because it's 10 o'clock. I've been going at this for, I think, 3 hours now. And I need to take a break. Actually, number 2 is coming around the corner. But let's see here. Let's see if I can get right, you guys want to type on chat? Let's see if I can get a poll. Speed lines or no speed lines? Speed lines or no speed lines? And make sure you click that follow button up there. I think it's right around there. Make sure you have that follow button so you know when I'm going to come on live again. Each time, hopefully this show will improve. Speed lines or no speed lines? That's the question. Yoji says speed lines. Now again, this is going to be a print, 11 by 17. It's a horizontal print. I guess the other thing is text or no text? And speed lines. I'm inclined to not go with the text. And leave the negative space as it is. Oh, you know what else I need? The most important thing is a signature. So only Yoji's gonna be art director today. Oh, am I really gonna make a print based off of Yoji's suggestion for speed lines? Okay. Usually right in the middle. This would be nice. Maybe in the corner. Maybe bigger. I've been signing stuff in the middle. Pull out 11 by 17. This is a little bit less than that. 13 and a half. What's half of 13 and a half? 6 and a quarter. No, 6 and 3/4. Okay. Second, Mikey with the second speed lines. All right. So the first one is make a motion for speed lines. Yoji made a motion for speed lines. Mega seconded the speed lines. So if we're in Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedures, this is now an active vote. If you abstain from voting, that's saying yes. So all in favor for speed lines, raise your hand or say yes in the chat. And then all not in favor, say nay, no. Okay, 3. There's 3 votes for speed lines. Mikey Mega with the spirit fingers. Well, I did go to an art school, so a lot of music theater majors were my friends. Okay. See you later, Mikey Mega. Let's close this out. Let's wrap this up. I guess the consensus is speed lines. Let me know if you hear the music. Let me know if you hear the music. So I want to thank everyone. This is our third preseason run. But how do I play the music and not have to turn on the computer speakers is the key. Because now I have to... Anyways, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope to catch you around. Give a brother a follow. And keep reading those comics.